Whispered heat and a lost ring. I found the ring in the sink trap, glinting through a swirl of coffee grounds and lemon pulp. It must have slipped off a finger while rinsing a glass, small, gold, with a faint engraving someone once thought romantic. A and M nested together, a forever that fit on a hand. It wasn't mine. It wasn't my wife's. Maya's ring is platinum, square set, and she never takes it off. That's the kind of person she is, careful, understated, unmissable when she chooses to be. I rinsed the gold band clean and turned it in my palm. The numbers of our plumber's receipt warped through the little circle like a funhouse mirror. The apartment still smelled of last night's wine and rosemary, of the heat from the oven that seemed to hang in the air the way perfume clings to a scarf. We had a small dinner. Maya's boss, a photographer named Julian whose portraits always looked like scenes from a dream someone wanted to wake up from, his wife Anya, pale and trying, and our neighbor across the hall, Elena. She arrived late with a bottle of Cabernet and the easy grace of someone who just stepped off a stage. She used to dance with a touring company, she told me once. It's in the way she leans against a doorway, like the hinge is part of her balance. What I remember now, laughter threaded with a taut, almost musical tension. The way Maya avoided looking at me when Julian's hand brushed her wrist to emphasize a story. Elena's eyes flicking to that touch and then to me, as if asking a question she didn't want to say out loud. I wrapped the ring in a paper towel and folded it into my pocket, a secret ordinary enough to carry. Maya had already left for a site visit, an early text and a kiss that tasted like mint and apology. At noon, I sent a message to the building group chat. Found a ring, gold, initials A and M, let me know if it's yours. 3 blips appeared. Elena's message was first. Could it be mine? She wrote. I lost something small last night. Tea in my place at 6 if you have time. I stared at the name on my screen longer than I should have, the way a man hesitates on the edge of a pool, feeling the shock of the future as if it were water. I told myself it was neighborly. I told myself it was the right thing. She opened the door wearing a charcoal sweater and bare feet, her hair gathered at the nape. The apartment smelled like oranges and a little like rain, as if she just brought the weather in with her. She smiled when she saw me, then touched her mouth in a startled, almost girlish way. You did find it, she said, not looking at the ring yet but at me, searching my face. Or you found something. I placed it on her counter. She leaned over it, breathed out, and the sweater shifted in a small sigh of fabric. It's not mine, she said, very softly, as if the ring could be embarrassed. No, I tried to make my voice neutral. No, she turned the band between her fingers like a tiny coin whose currency had expired. But I know those initials, A and M. Anya, and the word snagged in my throat. Maya, she finished, and when she said my wife's name it sounded like a note held too long. The kitchen clock made a single, mechanical click. I thought of the bathroom mirror after dinner, its blur from the steam, the lipstick I didn't recognize on the rim of a glass. I thought of the way Julian touched the small of Maya's back when he reached past her to take a dish, and how her breath changed, how the room felt suddenly tilted. Everyone laughs at the cynical plots of movies about betrayal until you notice that your life has the same camera angles. How do you know? I asked. Elena pushed her hair behind one ear and looked at me with something like pity or tenderness or both. I heard them, she said, in your hallway near the elevator. I was coming back from taking out the trash. I wasn't trying to listen, but they weren't exactly whispering. And the ring, that's Anya's, her grandmother. She ties it on a ribbon when she swims. Julian told me the story once when he wanted me to think he was the kind of man who notices small, beautiful things. I imagined Anya slipping off the ring, tying it, tucking it into a pocket. I imagined her forgetting, a lapse, a fever of wine and sudden courage. Or maybe she left it on purpose, like a breadcrumb. There's a cruelty in people who pretend to be delicate. I didn't know how to tell you, Elena said. Last night, you looked at Maya the way a man looks at a cathedral he thinks he built with his own hands. I still want to, I said, and hated the sound of it. She reached for my hand. It was meant to comfort, but electricity is very good at pretending to be solace when you're starved. Her fingers were warm, her thumb tracing an absent-minded arc along the bone, and I felt it all the way under my ribs. Sit, she said, I'll make tea. We sat on the floor with our backs against the cabinets, the ring between us on the tile like a coin we kept refusing to spend. Outside the window, the city shrugged on evening. Elena's knee brushed mine. I did not move my leg. She didn't either. I could smell oranges again, and something drifting behind it, a clean skin scent that made me think of the soft part of a wrist. The air grew less like weather and more like a room after someone whispers your name. Anya didn't do this to hurt you, Elena said. She did it to find an exit, I think, or to prove one exists. And Maya. She did it because she could, Elena said, not unkindly, and because she forgot who was watching. I should have stood up then, thanked her for the tea, left with my indignation like a cloak I could wrap around my shoulders against the wind. Instead, I asked what it felt like to stand at the edge of a stage and bow into darkness, to hear applause that coats your skin like mist. She told me. She talked with her hands, her calves crossed under her, the line of her throat a little taut when she laughed. And then there was a pause too long to be accidental, and I realized I was staring at her mouth. You shouldn't, she said. I know. We didn't, not then. But the room kept leaning us closer until the space between us felt tender. She touched my cheek with her knuckles, a careful, testing touch, as if she were checking whether a candle had cooled. Heat does not leave quickly. I have an idea, she said. A dinner, just like last night. Same people, same wine. We let them choose the same choices. People will do what they're trained to do when they think no one has changed the choreography. You want to set a trap. I want to set a scene, she said and smiled. You write ad copy. I danced. We both know how to lead an audience to the end they deserve. The plan should have made me feel grimly righteous. Instead, it made me feel alive, complicity curling through me like smoke, like a hand sliding under a shirt. We traded details, timing, like two spies circling a border. At the door she hugged me quick, but it was not a neighborly hug. Her breath touched my collarbone. My heart startled and then refused to calm down. That night I waited for Maya's key. She came in smelling of cold air and cedar. She kissed me and looked away. When she showered, she sang under her breath, a song I didn't know, bright, careless. I stood in the doorway and watched steam braid itself around her silhouette. People always tell you it's the lies that hurt. Sometimes it's the ease. Let's do it again, I said over breakfast, as if the idea had just occurred to me. Another dinner, Friday. Her eyes flickered once. Again, so soon. Why not? It was fun. Fun, she repeated, and smiled like she was chewing the word to taste its bitterness. Okay. The day bent itself toward Friday like metal under heat. In the elevator, Elena and I stood shoulder to shoulder without touching and pretended the light wasn't different. The hallway smelled of someone's burnt toast and a faint sweetness like an old bouquet remembering itself. I made a list for the grocery store and left off the thing I wanted most: certainty. I set the table early, every plate an omen. When Elena knocked, I opened the door fast, as if she were oxygen. She wore a black dress that managed to be both simple and a secret. The curve of her shoulder under the fabric looked like something you could memorize and still get wrong. She gave me a smile that felt like a dare. Anya arrived next, cheeks pink, a scarf wound loosely at her throat. She looked courageous the way a startled animal looks poised, ready to dart and also ready to bite. Julian came last with a grin under his stubble and an apology for being perpetually late made to sound charming by practice. Maya moved through the room like a conductor, filling glasses, touching wrists, her laughter tuned for these people. When she came to me, she tucked a strand of hair behind my ear and then left her hand resting on my shoulder as if to steady me. I pretended it worked. The conversation drifted again to travel, to memories of rooms with balconies and narrow beds. You can always tell when someone is describing desire and pretending it's a hotel. Elena asked Julian a question about an exhibition and leaned in to listen with both eyes. I watched the muscle jump in Maya's jaw. Anya sipped wine as if it were medicine she'd finally decided to take. During the second course, I excused myself to the kitchen and waited. It didn't take long. A shadow slid into the hallway where the light softened to a shade that forgave. Then another followed. The sound of low voices, a laugh I could have recognized in my sleep. I stepped just enough to see. Maya's hand on Julian's chest, his mouth at her temple. It was almost chaste, almost. They looked like people playing at being strangers because it made their bodies forget their names. I wasn't going to record it. I already knew. Evidence is a thing you need when you are still trying to convince yourself. I set a glass down on the counter and the sound carried, a tiny chime, a little bell ringing them back into the room where their lives were still set. When they returned, Elena's gaze found me and then flicked, deliberate, to the hallway. She stood, smoothed her dress and walked to the doorway, pausing under the dim bulb shaped like a pearl. She reached up, touched the frame as if it were a bar. Then she looked at Julian, looked at Maya, and said something I couldn't hear but felt like wind through an open door. Anya set her glass down very carefully. I admired, for a heartbeat, the mercy in the way she did it. "She knows," I said to Maya very quietly when it was just our voices at the sink, washed in the contagion of running water. "And so do I." She turned off the tap. The room stilled so fully that the hum of the refrigerator sounded like a distant wave. "It was nothing," she said, and the uselessness of the lie made my teeth ache. "It wasn't." "Nothing doesn't leave jewelry in the plumbing," I said. "Nothing doesn't make you forget to breathe." She pressed her palm to her mouth. Her eyes were glassy with the stubbornness of someone who's not ready to surrender her version of the story. Behind us, the others made small body noises, chairs, fabric, the sound of people realizing the floor plan has changed. Finally, she said, "What do you want me to do?" I wanted to say I wanted her to be the woman she'd been when we ate pizza on the floor, our legs tangent, the city outside our first cheap apartment brighter for being ours. I wanted to say I wanted to rewind or fast forward or anything but pause. Instead I said, "Tell the truth. You owe the room that." So we did what people do in rooms when there's no way to perform kindness without violence. We told the truth. It came out in clumps, in fragments, in phrases we'd heard in movies, in the shape of a ring left where it didn't belong. Julian was better at regret than surprise. Anya went quiet in the way of people who have learned silence is a blade too. Maya took my hand once, then let it fall, as if even contact were a decision she wasn't ready for. At the door, the four of us arranged ourselves like a final, imperfect photograph. Anya turned to Elena and said, "Thank you." It was strange and right. When they were gone, the apartment exhaled. Maya stood in the middle of the living room and looked at the window as if it might start playing a different channel if she stared hard enough. "I don't know who I am right now," she said. "I don't know how to be." Then start small, I said, and wasn't sure if I was talking to her or to myself. Start by sleeping in the guest room. We didn't say the word separation. We let it hover like a moth, pale, fragile, persistent. After I took the trash down, I found Elena waiting on the landing between floors, the place where the stairwell smells like concrete and someone's laundry. She rubbed her arms and gave me a rueful half-smile. "Was it awful?" she asked. "It was honest." She nodded, and the gesture felt braver than any speech. "Anya will sleep at my place tonight," she said. "She shouldn't be alone with the echo of it. Echoes are worse at night." "Thank you," I said, and meant it in too many directions. We didn't plan the next part. We didn't say we were going to my apartment. We didn't say anything when our shoulders brushed on the stairs except for our bodies. Quiet agreement that this, here, now, was allowed to be gentle. Inside, the living room was a stage where the lights were finally down. I poured water. She laughed when she saw my hands shake and reached to steady the glass. Her fingers curled around mine, and the tremor eased as if she'd pressed a switch I didn't know I had. "I don't want to be anyone's revenge," she said. "You are." "I don't want you to be mine," I said. We stood at the window, side by side. The city glittered like a box of necklaces someone had carelessly spilled. Her shoulder leaned into my arm, then rested, the way a head finds a pillow by instinct. I could feel the warmth of her through the thin fabric of her dress. The closeness made my skin hum, a low, hopeful current. She turned to me slowly, as if we were dancing and the steps needed to be marked to memorize them. Her face was inches from mine, eyes searching. She lifted her hand and traced the line of my jaw with a fingertip, feather-light. I closed my eyes at the touch, because sometimes you need to see nothing to understand what's in front of you. The kiss was inevitable and still astonishing. It wasn't frantic. It was slow enough to count the tiny, unimportant moments that suddenly felt like proof. The intake of breath between us, the way her lower lip trembled against mine, the faint citrus on her tongue from the tea. When she pressed closer, her body fit mine as if a blueprint had been followed by accident. Her hand slid to the back of my neck with a sweet certainty that made me forget every clock. We didn't hurry past the kiss into an apology or into something I couldn't call soft. We stayed there a long time, as if in that exact distance we could breathe and not drown. When we separated, her forehead rested against mine. We were both unsteady, but not from wine. "This is the part," she whispered, "where we choose the story we can live with." I laughed, a small, hoarse sound. I thought the story was choosing us. "Maybe it is," she said, "but I like to believe in agency. It's the only way I sleep." She kissed me again, one more time, like a promise that knew the difference between a vow and a wish. Then she stepped back, smoothing the fabric at her waist, trying to catch her breath. "I should go," she said. "Anya will be waiting." "Elena," I said, and her name felt like something my mouth had been designed for. "Thank you for the truth, for not rushing the ending." She smiled, and I saw then the strength in her restraint, the control of someone who had trained her body to hold a line no matter what the music begged. At the door, she pressed the ring into my hand. "Give this back to Anya," she said. "When she's ready, tell her she didn't lose it. She simply learned where it was." After she left, I stood in the empty apartment with the ring in my palm. The air still held the faintest impression of her fragrance, oranges and rain. In the guest room, I heard Maya shift, the mattress complaining like old floorboards. I thought about how desire and betrayal occupy the same neighborhoods in the heart, how easily you can mistake one for the other when you've been walking dark streets too long. I put the ring in a small dish by the window and watched the city dim. If I tilted my head, I could see my reflection overlapping with the skyline, a ghost self, transparent, still stubbornly here. Somewhere down the hall, a faucet dripped. Somewhere above us, a couple laughed, a bright, ordinary sound. I lay on the couch with a blanket over my legs, the kind we bought together on a winter trip years ago. The fabric still knew the shape of us. I closed my eyes and focused on the human things. My breath, the thud of blood, the delicious ache at the base of my throat where a kiss had lately lived. Heat and hurt, threaded, both true. In the morning, I would make coffee. I would hand Anya the ring when the doorbell rang, if it did. I would speak to Maya with a patience I would have to borrow from some better version of myself. Maybe I would text Elena a single word, here, without demanding more from it than company. For now, I kept my fingers around the small circle of gold and let it warm to my skin. An an inscription that no longer told the story it meant to tell. But there's another way to read, and if you choose it carefully, a hinge, a threshold, a breath drawn between a kiss and the next sentence. Outside, the city's dawn softened the hard edges. Inside, my heart matched a new rhythm in my chest, cautious and bright. Not certainty, not yet, but something like the beginning of one.